The wind howls out of the south, carrying desert sand and the sharp smell of ozone. A man sits in an ash heap, but it doesn't just appear in the whirlwind with Job. A prophet in Jerusalem watches a foreign king try to elevate his throne above the stars of God. They are the sons of God who once shouted for joy over the foundation of the world. Now, they are hurled down to the earth. They are enraged. They are stripped of their heavenly authority. They are trapped in the very dirt they once watched God measure. The ancient mind understood exactly what John was describing. Revelation 12 is not a prediction of astronomical anomalies. It is the casualty report of a cosmic war. The heavens are cleared. The physical earth becomes the primary battlefield. The fallen stars are now operating in the unseen spaces of human history, roaming the planet, manipulating empires, demanding to be treated as gods. The dark seems absolute. The night feels like it has won. The dragon stands on the shore of the sea, and humanity is caught in the crossfire. But there is a reason these beings were called morning stars. And the detail that changes everything is what the dawn actually means. We rarely experience true, unbroken darkness anymore. In a world saturated by artificial light, the night is just a dimmer version of the day. But in the ancient Near East, the darkness was a profound physical vulnerability. When the sun dropped below the horizon, you barred the heavy wooden doors. You kept the hearth fire fed with dry brush because the fire was the only boundary between your family and the wild. Another prophet, standing on the rocky cliffs of a Roman prison island, watches a red dragon sweep a third of the stars out of the sky. The night was the domain of the predator, the thief, and the unseen spiritual forces that thrived in the shadows. To be caught outside in the absolute pitch black of the desert was not just an inconvenience, it was a death sentence. The dark was not just an absence of light, it was the active presence of chaos. This is why the specific designation of the morning star matters so much to the biblical writers. The Hebrew word for morning is boker. It derives from an ancient root that means to split, to cleave, or to pierce. Morning is not just a time on a clock. It is a violent action. It is the moment the light finally splits the heavy canopy of the dark. A normal star that appears at midnight offers navigation, but it does not promise an immediate end to the night. It simply hangs in the cold vacuum, spinning along its axis, while the darkness remains completely intact. But a morning star operates on a completely different set of rules. The morning star, what the ancients recognized as Venus, does not behave like the rest of the celestial host. It burns with a brilliant, piercing silver light. So bright, it can cast a faint shadow on the desert sand and throw them to the earth. And finally, a resurrected Savior stands at the very end of the biblical library, and it only steps onto the stage in the final, coldest hours of the night. It arrives when the frost is on the stones, when the dark feels the most absolute, when the chill is deepest in your bones. But it does not stay in the dark. It is a herald. It announces that the sun is just beneath the horizon, burning its way up. The morning star is not just a celestial body. It is an eviction notice to the night. When the divine beings in Job 38 are called morning stars, it means they were present at the splitting of the primordial darkness, watching the Creator carve order out of chaos. When the fallen king of Isaiah 14 is called a morning star, it makes his betrayal even more tragic. He was supposed to be a herald of the light, but he tried to consume the light for his own glory. The fallen stars of Revelation 12 are currently operating in the dark. They have convinced humanity that the night is permanent. They rule the shadows of human history, building empires fueled by violence, stoking wars, and whispering that the sun is never going to rise. They want you to believe the darkness is all there is, but they are terrified of the eastern horizon. Because the biblical narrative does not end with a dragon sweeping the sky, and it does not end with fallen stars ruling the dirt. It ends with one final, definitive claim over the morning itself, and claims the ultimate title of the bright morning star for himself. Same image, same phrase, again and again. The ink dries on the rough papyrus. The old man's hand is cramped. The smell of the Aegean Sea hangs in the damp air of the cave, John has seen the cosmos tear open. He has watched the red dragon sweep the sky. He has seen the dead stand before a white throne, and he has watched a city of gold descend from the clouds, radiating a light so thick and pure it requires no sun. But in the final verses of the entire biblical library, the cosmic scale collapses down to a single, personal voice. Revelation chapter 22, verse 16. Jesus speaks directly. I am the root and the descendant of David, the bright morning star. In Greek, the phrase is Aster ho proainos, the star of the morning, after 66 books of wars, is secondus, failures, and wandering. These are the final red letters of the text. He does not close by calling himself a king, though he is. He does not close by calling himself a priest, though he is. He closes by taking the title of the celestial host, but he adds a word. He is the Lampros, the bright one, the radiant one. This is not a random poetic sign-off. It is the reclamation of a stolen crown, thousands of years earlier. The Hellel ben Shashar, the shining one of Isaiah 14, tried to ascend above the stars of God. He tried to exalt his own throne on the mountain of assembly. Most people assume this is just ancient, descriptive language. We look at the night sky. We know they are burning spheres of hydrogen gas. He grasped at equality with the Creator, fractured the celestial council, and was thrown down to the dirt. He dragged a third of the host with him, plunging humanity into a long, brutal night. Jesus did the exact opposite. He did not grasp. He emptied himself. He stepped down from the heights of the heavenly court. He put on human flesh, walked into the cold night of our world, and let the darkness do its absolute worst to him on a Roman cross. He went lower than the dirt. He went into the stone floor of a tomb. And because he descended, he was elevated. Now, the resurrected Christ stands at the end of history and strips the title away from the usurper. He looks at the fallen stars operating in the shadows of the earth. He looks at the dragon waiting in the dark. And he announces exactly who he is. He is the ultimate morning star. He is the one who was there when the cornerstone of reality was dropped into the deep water. He is the one whose light cannot be swallowed by the night. He is the permanent eviction notice to the chaos. When the true morning star rises, the scattered, fallen host of heaven, millions of light years away, and we assume the biblical writers were simply using nature as a metaphor for creation, praising God, has no place left to hide. The war that started before Eden is finished. The morning is secure, but John is still sitting in a damp cave, a prisoner of a pagan empire. And you and I are still waking up in a world that feels incredibly dark. We are living in the space between the star and the sunrise. When we wake up in the pitch black of a hospital room, listening to the rhythmic beep of a monitor, the cosmic victory of Revelation 22 can feel painfully abstract. When we grip a cold steering wheel on a dark morning commute, watching the news cycle through another geopolitical disaster, it is very easy to believe that the dragon is still winning. The biblical text does not deny this reality. The authors never pretend that the night is over. They knew that the fallen stars of the divine council were still thrashing in the dirt, causing as much damage as possible before the dawn completely breaks. They understood that the spiritual architecture of the world is still fractured, and that humanity is still caught in the crossfire of an ancient rebellion. But they also knew how to read the sky. The Apostle Peter writes a letter to scattered, exhausted people who are facing brutal persecution under the shadow of Rome. We think they are just talking about astronomy. But if you look closer at the ancient mind, at the Hebrew language beneath the English text, he tells them to pay attention to the prophetic word, as if it were a lamp shining in a dark place. And then he gives them a very specific instruction for their waiting. He says they must hold on to that lamp until the day dawns, and the morning star rises in your hearts. Peter uses a unique Greek word here. He does not use the standard word for star. He calls it the phosphoros, the light bringer. He is telling a traumatized people that the appearance of this star does not instantly evaporate the shadows. When the morning star rises, You are still in the final, freezing hours of the night. It is the coldest part of the watch, but the presence of the phosphoros changes the entire nature of the dark. The morning star is not a promise of immediate daylight. It is the guarantee that the dark has an expiration date. The fallen powers that manipulate the systems of our world are operating on borrowed time. Their rebellion, which started before humanity even had a name, has already been countered. The true Shining One has already stepped onto the horizon. We are just waiting for the rotation of the Earth to catch up to the reality of the sky. We are waiting for the Lightbringer to finally split the canopy. And when you trace this single image from the ash heap of a broken man all the way to the final throne, at what actually happens in the heavens, when these stars appear, you start to see something the poetic reading completely misses. Room of the Universe. You realize that the story is not just about a celestial title. It is about exactly what God is doing with the dark. The divine council shouted in the primordial deep, and the foundations of the earth were laid. The brightest Shining One tried to exalt his own throne and was cast down into the dust. A red dragon swept his tail across the ancient sky, and a third of the host crashed to the dirt. A world was plunged into a brutal, spiritual night, and humanity was caught in the crossfire. An exiled fisherman wrote to a scattered, bleeding people and told them to watch the horizon. The Creator stepped down into the cold dark of a tomb and broke the grip of the chaos. A resurrected king stands at the end of the biblical library and claims the morning for himself. Same cosmos, same war, same dawn. But maybe the part that stays with me most is the timing of that star. The morning star does not show up at sunset. It does not arrive when the hearth fire is still warm. The morning stars are not celestial objects. They are a celestial council. The real question of these passages isn't, what is a star? It steps onto the stage in the final, coldest hours of the night. When the frost is on the stones and the darkness feels absolute, it appears exactly when the night seems most permanent, casting its piercing silver light onto the desert sand. If you are in a season where the darkness feels like an unbreakable canopy, if you are sitting in the freezing hours of the night, wondering if the sun is ever going to rise, this ancient title is a place to sit. The Phosphoros, the Lightbringer. Jesus does not promise that the night will instantly evaporate the moment you believe. He promises that he has already stepped onto the horizon. The dark has an expiration date. And may the God who laid the foundations of the earth while the stars sang, walk with you through the longest hours of your night and give you the strength to hold the lamp until the day finally breaks. If this reached something in you, subscribe and leave a comment. Even one word helps. Share this with someone who is waiting for the morning right now. And please, pray for us as we keep digging into these texts. It's this. Who was singing in the dark before humanity even existed? We are a modern people who often feel isolated, his skin split open, his body exhausted from months of pain. He has lost his children, his wealth, and his reputation, staring up into the silent, black vacuum of space, wondering if anyone else is out there. But the biblical authors did not view the heavens as an empty vacuum. They viewed it as heavily populated territory. They understood that human history was playing out underneath a massive, unseen conflict, involving beings who were there before the dirt was even formed. To feel the weight of this story, and to understand why the morning stars eventually go to war, you have to step out of the 21st century. You have to look up at the night sky the exact same way an ancient Israelite did. We look up through the glare of modern city lights and see distant spheres of burning gas. The ancient mind stood under a heavy, black dome in the cold desert night, wrapped in wool, and saw something entirely different. To the ancient Israelite, the sky was not a vacuum. It was a throne room. When they looked up at the flickering lights scattered across the expanse, they did not see inanimate objects. They saw members of a royal court. They saw watchers. The sheer physical presence of the night sky in a world without electricity was overwhelming. The silence was thick. For 37 chapters, he has been demanding an audience with the Creator of the universe. He wants God to put himself on the witness stand. The pinpoint lights slowly rotating around the northern axis displayed a relentless, perfect order. The ancients watched this rotation and recognized an intelligence behind it. The cosmos was alive. This worldview is not a primitive misunderstanding of science. It is a theological map. In the ancient Near East, the correlation between stars and divine beings was universal. Stars rule the night. They move in predictable, majestic patterns, just as a heavenly court follows the commands of a sovereign king. When the biblical writers talk about the host of heaven, the Hebrew word is Saba. It means an army, a massive, organized military force. Depending on the context in the Hebrew Bible, the Saba of heaven can refer to the literal physical stars, or it can refer to the spiritual beings who surround the throne of God. Almost always, it means both at the exact same time. In their worldview, the physical and the spiritual were not separated by an impenetrable wall. The physical star was the visible, localized manifestation of a spiritual reality. When God sets the sun, moon, and stars in the sky in Genesis 1, He does not just call them lights. He calls them rulers. They are given authority over the day and the night. When the book of Judges describes the stars fighting against the Canaanite general Sisera, he wants the architect of reality to explain the chaos of his life. Instead, the sky tears open. The whirlwind descends. It is not just employing poetic personification. It is describing the spiritual host of God moving in tandem with the physical storm. When Deuteronomy warns the Israelites against worshiping the sun, the moon, and the stars, the danger is real. The text does not warn them against bowing down to dead rocks. It warns them against submitting to the lesser spiritual entities that populate the heavenly realms. The stars are not just scenery. They are an audience. They are the divine beings who were there before the dirt was formed, the angelic hosts, who watch the foundations of reality snap into place. And this dual identity, the star as a physical light and a spiritual entity, is the only way to understand what is actually happening when God finally answers a broken man out of the storm. Because when God speaks out of the whirlwind in Job chapter 38, He is doing more than just asking rhetorical questions. He is forcing Job to look at the original blueprints of the earth. The whirlwind rips across the ash heap. The sand stings Job's skin. The voice thunders over the screaming wind. God does not hand Job a legal verdict. He gives him a tour of the cosmos. He asks a series of impossible questions. Who enclosed the sea with heavy doors? Who commanded the dawn to arrive? Who walked in the freezing recesses of the deep? Job is speechless. The dust fills his mouth. God speaks. But God does not answer the man's questions. He asks his own. He demands to know where Job was. He is completely, utterly small. And then, God takes him back to the absolute beginning, to the deep dark. Job chapter 38, verse 7. God asks Job where he was when the earth's foundations were fastened. He asks who laid its cornerstone. He sets the scene, when the morning stars sang together, and all the sons of God shouted for joy. The English translation gives you a poetic picture. The original language gives you a concrete identity. The phrase, translated morning stars, is the Hebrew Kokabeh Boker. Kokab means star. Boker means morning. The breaking of dawn. The piercing of the night. And the structure of the poem holds the key to exactly who is standing in the dark. Hebrew poetry does not rhyme sounds. It rhymes ideas. It relies on a technique called parallelism, where the second half of a verse mirrors and explains the first half. The morning stars who sang together are identified in the very next breath. They are the Bene Elohim, the sons of God, the divine council. These are the celestial beings created before the physical universe. They stand in the black void. They watch the Creator stretch out the cosmic measuring line. When the foundations of the earth were laid, when the cornerstone of the planet was sunk into the primordial deep, they watch the dirt form. They watch the cornerstone of reality drop into the deep water, and they sing. The Hebrew verb for their song is ranan. It means to shout, to cry out wildly, to ring with a resounding piercing voice. It is the sound a crowd makes when a war is won. They are not politely humming. They are roaring. They watch order conquer chaos. They watch light shatter the dark. They watch an empty, dead space become a living world. This is the moment of perfect unity. The Creator acts. The celestial court responds. There is no sickness. There is no rebellion. There is no ash heap for a broken man to sit on. The morning stars are not a metaphor for ancient astronomy. They are the original witnesses of a pristine universe. They are the loyal suns shouting at the birth of the world. But the singing eventually stops. The perfect unity cracks. And a rebellion begins with the brightest star of them all. When you read the ancient prophets, you are not just reading history. You are reading cosmic theology layered directly over human politics. In Isaiah chapter 14, a prophet in Jerusalem dictates a taunt against the king of Babylon. He is writing about a human dictator. And then, God drops a detail that completely rewrites how we read the opening pages of Genesis. He is describing a man of flesh and bone who taxes the poor, chains up captives, and leaves the smell of burning cedar in his wake. But halfway through the taunt, the language shifts. The human king becomes a mirror for a much older, much darker reality. The prophet reaches past the geopolitical borders of the ancient Near East, reaches all the way back to the dawn of creation, and pulls an image straight from the divine council. He writes, "How you are fallen from heaven, O day star, son of dawn." The word your English Bible translates as day star or morning star is the Hebrew Hallel. It comes from the root halal, which means to shine, to flash forth light, and, fascinatingly, to boast or be arrogant. He is called Helel ben Shahar, the shining one, the son of the dawn. In the ancient astronomical mind, this was Venus. It is the brightest piercing light in the early morning sky, the star that rises right before the sun, appearing to challenge the daylight itself before eventually being swallowed by the greater light. If feeling the weight of the original Hebrew is opening up the Bible for you in a new way, you're exactly who this channel is for. Subscribe and leave a comment below. Even one word helps, because every week we go deeper into the text than you knew was possible. He says the foundation of the earth was laid while the morning stars sang together, and all the sons of God shouted for joy. So the brightest star falls. Isaiah is doing something profound here. He is taking the ancient memory of the singing morning stars from Job 38, and he is isolating the one who decided the chorus was not enough. The text says, "This being said in his heart, I will ascend to heaven. Above the stars of God I will set my throne on high." He was not content to be part of the Tzaba, the heavenly host. He was not content to reflect the light of the Creator. He wanted to be the source. He wanted to climb above his fellow morning stars and rule the mountain of assembly himself. This text is not just a political poem about a Babylonian king. It is an autopsy of the first sin. It reveals the exact moment the perfect unity of the celestial court cracked. The shout of joy turned into a power struggle, and the Shining One was cast down from the high places to the dust of Sheol. The physical star of morning becomes a symbol of ultimate spiritual arrogance, the creature who tried to rival the Creator. The brightest morning star falls from the height of heaven down to the dirt. But he does not fall alone. A prophet stands on the rocky cliffs of Patmos. The Aegean Sea crashes against the black stone. The wind smells of salt and exile. The morning stars. It is a phrase that sits quietly in the background of your Bible. Easy to skim past as ancient poetry. An old man, imprisoned by a human emperor, closes his eyes. The sky tears open. John does not see a geopolitical empire. He sees the spiritual architecture operating behind the empire. Revelation chapter 12. A woman, clothed with the sun, cries out in the agony of labor. A great red dragon rises in the dark. His scales are the color of fresh blood. 7 heads, 10 horns. He waits in the shadows to devour the child. But before he strikes the woman, he looks up. He swings his massive tail across the black canvas of the night sky. He strikes the host of heaven. A third of the stars are ripped from their orbits. They fall through the atmosphere. They crash into the Earth. This is the exact same imagery we saw in the whirlwind. This is the exact same celestial host. When the dragon's tail sweeps the sky, John is not watching a meteor shower. He is watching the devastating fallout of the rebellion that started in Isaiah 14. The Shining One, the Helel ben Sheshar, did not fall in isolation. When he decided to climb above the heights of the clouds, he fractured the divine council. He convinced a massive portion of the heavenly host to abandon their posts, to turn against the architect, to seek their own worship. They stopped singing. They started fighting. The stars hitting the dirt in Revelation 12 are the morning stars of Job 38.